Okay, we're on. Hello, Ryden.
Hi,
Welcome to Reach
Derek.
and Reflect.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here today and get to share with your audience.
Yeah, me too. I'm just going to do a quick introduction about Reach and Reflect. So basically, it's a podcast in which we're trying to help other people gain insights and wisdom from hearing my friends' life stories, because in many ways, I think all of you are role models. And today, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about yours. So as we go through these questions, I'm going to ask you to paint me a picture of your life. Dive deep wherever you feel like it's appropriate, and try to get to like questions that everyone is dealing with, but isn't necessarily sharing their answers or anything that they found with regard to those questions. So I want to hear about where you currently are in life. If you don't mind, I know it's rude, but how old are you? Where you live in? What are you doing professionally?
So where I am right now in life is I am 33 years old. I just turned 33. I live in Mexico City. I've been here for 4 years, and I am the founder of La Chispa Incubadora. La Chispa, it's the spark incubator, translates to in English. And I help aspiring entrepreneurs start social impact businesses. And that is where I am today.
Yeah, and I know, but our viewers don't yet, that you had quite a interesting path to get there. And so I want to take us along that journey. And so if we could start actually rewinding way back when, let's talk about your childhood. What were your younger years like? And what was your family like?
Oof. I love it. This gets personal right away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually in the process of rewriting this story in my own mind. The reason why I'm rewriting my own story here is that I realized that I was holding a narrative that was a little bit of a victim mentality and disempowering to myself. So when I'm about to share this story, if you had asked me this a year ago, it would have been very different. If you asked me this a year from now, I bet it will also be different. But where I am today in my own evolution is that I grew up in Connecticut, in a very small, safe town, very, very similar demographic of people. And at the time, my parents and I did not get along. I had an upbringing where, starting at the age of 16, I felt like I needed to be independent, and no one loved me, and I was unlovable. And now, if I was going to make it in this world, it was going to result in my own independence and on my own two shoulders. I'm now reframing that story and realize that a lot of that was my own personal trauma and perspective and my own attachment style. So looking back, they were actually great parents, but at the time I wasn't willing to see that. That's what my childhood was.
That's really interesting. Are there any characteristics that you embody today that you can trace back to those times?
Yeah. Even just this week, I discovered that I have an avoidant attachment style where I overly value my independence, and anybody who gets too close, whether it's in a romantic sense or even in a business sense, if I feel like I'm trapped in and my independence is threatened, I shut down, I push away, I avoid. And that was based on this inaccurate perception that I had in my childhood, that I was alone in this world. And I needed to ensure that I could provide and survive myself. But it's all false narratives.
Yeah. And how are you dealing with that now that you recognize that it's a false narrative?
I'm also a hypnotherapist. I've been using self-hypnosis for years and years and years. And I've been employing these self-hypnosis practices on myself. So this is all very new. I discovered I really came head to head with the avoidant attachment style 5-6 days ago. So I discovered it. Then day one, I was using neuro-linguistic programming just to start switching my narrative around it, putting present tense stuff in the past, then doing my own guided hypnosis, then doing things like daydreaming. Today is all about music. So I'm going to be listening to songs that help me connect with what is the emotion that I want to feel towards love, towards commitment, towards attachment.
Wow.
Yeah. And sending compassion to my younger self, because when we're young, we don't have a lot of mental maps of how the world works yet. We
Yeah.
over-index on patterns, and I don't blame myself for having that perception that I did. I really do need to apologize to my parents for also holding that false narrative that came out of my own actions. And I haven't apologized to them yet. Maybe after this podcast, I'll call them up.
Wow. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of things, probably all the things. I'm really curious what this neuro-linguistic programming looks like. Like, could you give me an example?
Yeah. So for example, in this specific case, saying I have an avoidant attachment style, switching have to had, and instead saying things, and I'm sure I'm still doing it here and there. It is a work in progress, and then switching my narrative to I'm scared of attachment to no, I'm becoming comfortable with attachment. I'm learning how to feel free in long-term commitments. I'm learning that it's not scary, So one thing that people often, I think, get wrong with positive affirmations and with neuro-linguistic programming is that they jump a little bit too far, and then it feels like they're lying to themselves, and then they quit it. So I always find that next sentence, that next thing that is still in truth, but moves you closer to your goal.
Yeah, I love that. That is the happy middle ground, isn't it?
So instead of switching from I can't to I can, because then maybe people be like, but I don't know if I can. Switch from I can't do this to I'm learning how to. I'm going to try to. I'm curious of what will happen if. And then just move you closer and closer to eventually you're like, yeah, I can. I got this. I know how. I've done it.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love that. And we'll have like a bit at the end for people to like, it's for us to provide resources for people to like learn more about this stuff. But that is phenomenal. I think super powerful as well. That does show up a lot in my life, like trying to reframe things using language to, shape the way that we actually think about ourselves, because we think in language, right? That, and all of our thoughts shape our feelings, which then shape our actions and how we come off to the world and influencing other people. And it's just a whole, it does start within, and I love that, right? And so fuck yeah.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
I do want to move on though, a little bit. So that was kind of like younger years. You said starting 16-ish. Were there any, like, do you think, defining moments in, junior high, high school, anything that felt pivotal or impactful to how you developed and the way you view the world?
I think summarizing it as there were some moments where I just really did feel like I was not lovable. I could not depend on anybody. If I was going to survive in this world, I had to do it off my own effort. And then how that shaped me from my early 20s is really focusing on building my own foundation in life across a bunch of different dimensions that we can go into in a second. And then also guarding myself a lot. I used to, this is more now post-college, but I used to be called an unempathetic robot in the finance world. And when I was rated the second lowest in empathy at a 1,500 person company in the finance world, which is, not the most empathetic. So that just all led to me being very protective and very, guarded.
Interesting. And if it's not too personal to get into, like, was there a trigger point for this, like these feelings, or how did they originate?
I think they were just micro moments over time. And I haven't pulled through my memory. I try not to go back and once I relive a memory and reprocess it and let it go, I try not to keep reliving it. So it would take me, I think, a few minutes to pull back what would be a defining moment of that.
No, that's okay. We can, if you've let them go, let's let them go, right? And I think that's so powerful and impressive to be able to do that and not get stuck in the cycle of repeating past bullshit. Okay, how about college? What was that like for you? Where'd you go? What'd you learn?
Yeah, college. I went to UConn, University of Connecticut, and there I studied business. I was a finance major, economics minor. I loved numbers, and I loved numbers applied to a practical output versus at the time when I perceived just plain math to be. Um, those defining moments in your childhood do lead to the future. And the reason why I loved math so much, going back for a second to childhood, is I remember I had a teacher, an English teacher in some grade that I don't remember, but I had always had a very different perspective on what poem authors were expressing in their poems. I've always just been a little bit of a weird angled thinker. And I remember just constantly not doing well in that class because the teacher would always say, no, that's not what this poem means. That's not what this poem means. And so I had just interpreted it as like, I don't understand what people are communicating in creative words. Like I'm clearly not getting it. So then I went to more hard numbers. Looking back, I wish I could have another conversation with that teacher and being like, no, poems are supposed to activate whatever emotion or thought process you have. And it's beautiful to have different perspectives. But yeah, that's what then ultimately led to me loving numbers. Also going back to the wanting to be independent and building my foundation, finance was where the money was. And I wanted to make sure that I had a financial base sitting underneath me.
Wow, it's so interesting that a class on poems was able to like foment that feeling of like, oh, I can't understand this.
Can't understand it. Yeah, I shied away from creative fields because of it.
Wow. And then so you moved into numbers. And when you found numbers, were they comforting to you? How did you feel once you started walking down that path?
I enjoyed numbers because they were comforting. They were puzzles that made my brain feel fun to try to solve and play with. They felt safe. They felt like, there's mostly a yes or no answer to whether or not this makes sense. And now I understand later in life that numbers are more subjective than we think they are. But at the college level, they're very hard and fast. And yeah, I loved it. In college, another defining thing was I didn't totally get the college experience that most people do because I was almost married. So I was living with my soon-to-be husband outside of campus. And then 2, because I felt that chip on my shoulder that I need to provide for myself, I worked from Friday night after school all the way to Sunday night. I would do almost 40-hour shifts back to back at a bar. So I never really got that fun college life. But it was great. I paid my way through college one semester at a time and never had to take it alone, which I'm proud of. But looking back, I should have taken it alone and had more fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm so, and we'll talk about like looking back if you would change anything in a little bit. I'm so curious as to how, like it seems like you developed a lot of strength through independence, right? Like it's not often that someone is able to work that many hours over the weekend, still attend college full time, and then pay for, and do enough on the weekends to pay for that college. That's incredibly impressive. If a little, less fun than maybe you would have wanted. So I'm also curious about, that the living situation and how that type of thing plays in. I know there's probably a lot of people who are in similar non-traditional types of scenarios, and is there any type of takeaways you have from that or advice that you'd like to give someone who might be in a similar spot?
One perspective that someone gave me recently, but I think really applies, is that you're going to have many relationships throughout your lifetime. Sometimes they're with the same person. So I love this perspective because at that time, that relationship was exactly what I needed. He was a very stable rock in my life. And that in that version, that younger me who really was craving that stability, was craving someone to lead on, even if I was fighting from it, really needed that in my life. And I'm really thankful for him at that moment. And then we grew out of each other because welcome to young 20s. So the advice that I'd have for everybody else is it's okay not to, it's okay just to appreciate your relationships for where you are at that moment, at that stage, and really ask yourself, what does the me need today? How can I love someone today?
I love that. That's a great perspective. And I'm so happy I asked you that question. And I hope people feel the same way.
Yeah.
I'm also wondering if these kind of more challenging moments, or even that whole span, helped. Do you think that helped you in any way get to where you are now? And if so, in what way?
Yes, 100. Yes, 100%. It helped me. And this is particularly in my college years. It helped me have trust in myself that I will always be okay. That I trust my own two hands and my own 2 feet and my brain, and it's, yeah, I got this. Like, even if La Chispa blows up, even if everything I'm doing today doesn't work out, I know that I can go back and work at a restaurant and still be okay.
Yeah. So speaking of La Chispa, that's very exciting, and
Yeah.
I do want to get there. But I feel like there's a lot in between that we haven't talked about yet. So after college, you mentioned you went into finance. Could you explain where you worked and how that was, for how long? And then, if while you're in there, could you pinpoint me a few moments that are like aha moments where you realize something about yourself or the environment, anything that stands out?
Yeah, so towards the very end of college, University of Connecticut is, or was at the time, mostly an insurance feeder school. Most people in finance went to go work in either insurance or accounting. When I was looking at those roles, I was not excited about them. There was something about it that I just couldn't picture my life doing that. I know it's great for a lot of people, but for some reason my soul knew it wasn't for me. I learned about Bridgewater, and at the time hedge funds were the sexiest thing around, and I wanted to work at the best, sexiest company. I was like, I need to be there. I heard about their culture, their radical transparency, their giving feedback. I was like, this is going to be the best boot camp for me. I need to get in this door. I need to just be around these people. So I was looking at their job applications, and I felt way underqualified for all of them. Also, looking back, I wish there was like a mentor that would have said, no, go for it. There's a statistic about how women feel like they need to have 100% of the qualifications before they apply, where men, I think you should fact check this, men it's lower, but I definitely fell into that category. So I didn't actually apply for any of the positions that were finance related or that I thought I was capable of. So I ended up applying as an administrative assistant, and I got in the door. I took the risk because I was like, I need to be surrounded by these people. I need to be at this company. I applied for the administrative assistant position. I got it, and it was the best door opener ever. My life drastically changed after that for so many reasons. I started as an assistant. I was there, did that for 8 months. And then once I was in the door, it wasn't my resume. It wasn't the fact that I didn't come from an Ivy League school. It was my own brain and my values and my mind. And then I got to switch over to the management track. And then there, I'm so grateful for them. I learned content agnostic management. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard about Ray Dalio's principles. And I got, because of the department that I worked in, I got to sit in on so many of the board members' meetings. So Ray, Greg, Bob, Eileen, David, and just get to see how they thought about these macro level problems, these company organizations, down to the nitty gritty of what do we do about this policy decision. And because it's such a principle-based company, they're constantly pulling out the principles that they were using to make that decision. And I was a sponge. I just absorbed everything. And yeah, I learned a ton.
Yeah. So you start as an admin and you become a manager of.
So I started as admin. I ended in being the manager of the trading strategies and analytics team. So
Wow.
at 20, I think I was 25, managing the team responsible for the trading strategies of $150 billion. That still blows my mind.
Mine too.
Yeah, that blows my mind.
And how long did you spend in that position?
The last one was a year, and in total, I was there for 6 years.
Wow. Okay.
6 years.
Okay. Now that sounds absolutely amazing. As I think many people know, that is one of the sexiest firms to work for. And I'm curious as to why you would leave such a job.
My decision to leave, I'm gonna answer that, but first, one part of context. So early on when I worked there, I had this intuition, the strategy that I was going to spend the first 5 to 7 years of my life building my foundation across my general intellectual abilities, financial, health, romance, everything, like really build my foundation. And then after those 5 to 7 years, my plan was I was going to jump off, spend a few years exploring, experimenting, choose one of those things, go deep in it for another 5, 7 years, explore, go deep, explore, go deep. So I don't know where that came from, but that was my general idea. So then when I was coming up across that 5 to 7 years, and I really felt like I had a solid foundation underneath me. I was thinking, what do I want? What do I want in this world? Well, who am I? And I wanted to go out into the world and see. So I actually gave a 1 year, I'm going to leave notice. I told them a year before I was going to leave that I was going to leave.
Well, that was really nice of you. I don't think it happens often.
One of the beauties of working at such a transparent company is that you can have those transparent, honest conversations where I didn't have to keep it quiet. I could be open about my desires, my dreams, and then also have it be a back and forth relationship of how can I also contribute in a positive way before I leave.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I wish more companies were like that. And now I want to know, so you had this general strategy cut out for you, build a foundation and then go explore and then find something that speaks to you after exploration. I feel like you might already have found your thing, but I also want to get the details of before that happened. So when you left Bridgewater, what was your plan? What was on the menu?
When I was leaving Bridgewater, I came up with this strategy that I knew I wanted to do something in the social impact space, but I didn't know what. So my strategy was to, one, keep learning top-down macroeconomic principles of how do economies develop, how do countries develop. I wanted to do bottoms-up grassroots of going and actually living in different developing countries where they are experiencing quality of life hits, and just get understanding. And then I also had this like middle approach where I wanted to go and talk to companies that were currently exploring that space, ultimately to figure out what is this intersection of what does the world need and what am I passionate about and my skills and ability. A little bit of that. I can never pronounce it. Ikigai. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That one.
I love that. So you mapped it out.
That I had mapped it out. That was my strategy. And for the listeners, one, I understand leaving your comfort zone is terrifying, especially when you're walking away from a stable paycheck. But if your heart and your intuition say go for it, I promise it'll be okay. That'd be my, yeah, you just got to go for it. Life is too short.
Powerful. So you go and you take the leap. Where do you land first?
I landed in different countries first. I think the first country I landed in was in India. But ultimately I landed in Kenya. I was only supposed to be there for 2 weeks, but the 2 weeks turned into 2 months, which turned into 2 years. So I ended up being on the ground there for 2 years. I started by just talking to companies, but then I realized if I was really going to understand, I need to stay. I need to live. I need to really get more into the weeds. So there, I noticed that there was a disconnect between what the top-down news was saying, like, oh, this is the best product for the bottom of the pyramid. Look at this wonderful clean clean water straw, or whatever invention of the day. But then when you're on the ground, you never see them. So I couldn't figure out what I was super curious. I was like, what is going on? Why is there this disconnect? So I ended up renting a plot of land outside the city of Kenya. And I tried to build myself a house and a farm using all of these best of products that the news was saying that were great. And I quickly realized why they don't work, why they are missing a lot of context, and nothing grew on my farm and my house fell down. So, but that helped me realize that the people who are living in the context really need to also be the ones creating the solutions, because those details matter a ton.
Oh yeah, the devil's in there for sure.
The devil is in the detail, 100%.
Pardon me for starting to laugh at your house falling down.
No, please do it. Please do it. I have a video of right before it fell down. One of mine, a couple of the neighbors in the community used to come over, and I'd hire them for the day. But I love them so much. We're still really good friends. We taught each other so much. But one of them was actually teaching me how to say twerking in Swahili. And was twerking on the wall, and that's what made it fall. So
no.
yeah, he was.
What?
Yeah, he was teaching me how to say twerking in Swahili, and I don't remember. I'd have to use a few minutes to go into my memory of how to say twerking in Swahili.
And they huffed and they puffed and they twerked the house down.
They twerked. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But if you can't twerk on a wall, that's a bad sign. That's
This is a bad sign. That
Yeah,
should be a test. Structural engineers need to.
Yeah, we should totally bring that to Burning Man. Like any wall that's constructed, we should have like a committee that comes around and twerks on the walls and then decides whether or not the wall is
structurally sound.
Structurally sound. Thank you. Yeah.
That's right. We'll have our twerk team show up and test the structural integrity of everyone's structures.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
I love it. I also want to see that video, but that'll be for another time. So, okay. So you spend 2 years in Kenya. What was going to be 2 weeks turns into 2 years. And you realize there's a big disconnect between the people who are making the products and pushing the products, and also the people who would be using the products.
That's well synthesized.
Awesome.
Yes.
And what do you do with that information?
So then I ran into this wonderful woman called Amelia, and she had co-created a incubator in Kenya where they find aspiring local entrepreneurs who want to create their own social impact business. And they just break down those systemic obstacles that are standing in the way of them developing their own solutions. So right after I had this farm catastrophe, learning great experiment catastrophe, I was already beginning to get close with her. I saw this incubator in action, and I fell in love with this concept. It made so much sense to me, given what I was seeing, given both from the top down, the bottoms up, the lateral, and so I got on their board. While I was there the last year and a half, I was working with them on the ground, working with their entrepreneurs, and this was my aha moment of this is my intersection of both my skills and abilities coming from that content agnostic Bridgewater management, content agnostic Bridgewater, and my passion and what I believe was a gap in the world that wasn't being filled. So got on their board, and and still am.
Yeah. And so that's Kenya.
That's Kenya.
is where you aren't right now. So
Yeah.
what happens after Kenya?
After about 2 years into Kenya, I really missed living in the New York City level energy and things going on. Nairobi is small. Nairobi, Kenya is about 3 million people, which is too small. Which is too small.
Small.
It was.
I'm in San Francisco with 1 million, and yeah, hearing 3 is small. I'm like, oh yeah, we're really small then.
It felt small. It felt really small. Right, comparing San Francisco to New York. Right? New York, when you walk through, there's something, anything you could possibly imagine is at your fingertips, and something is always open. And because there's so many people, you can really find your niche. If you want to do painting while crocheting and drinking red wine, I'm sure there's a meetup going on that week. And I missed that. So, but I was hesitant to go back to New York because by this time I had shedded away both that unempathetic robot. I had shedded away this perception that my self-worth was based on how fast I could climb a ladder. I had come down a lot. I had rebalanced my work life, and I was hesitant to go back to New York because I had a hypothesis that if I did that, it would kick me back to putting my self-worth in things that didn't actually make me happy. So someone put the seed of Mexico City in my ear. I went and I visited, and day one, I was like, this is my home. This is it. Yeah, I've never felt more at home.
I could see why. Having visited you recently, there was a moment where Kayla and I were like, could we move here?
Yeah.
It's amazing. So vibrant. So, okay. So you get bitten by the Mexico City bug. Yes. And when you land, what's your network like? Do you have any friends or anything? Like, how do you even begin to navigate such a huge life change like that?
I had one friend from Mexico City who was not in Mexico City. So I was alone. A secret is that I'm a LinkedIn stalker, a really good one. I highly recommend it for anybody too. Doing it in obviously a respectful way. But so what I do whenever I touch base in a new country is, whether I'm visiting or somewhere long-term like Mexico City, I Google what are the companies that I find fascinating here, local companies. I LinkedIn their founder or someone who works at a position that I think is interesting there. And I just message them. I say, hey, I'm in town, or I'm moving here. I would love to grab coffee. I'd love to pick your brain and ask you questions. And the majority of them say yes.
Oh.
Yeah, just coffee. And even if I don't end up becoming friends with that person, they're usually really well connected. And because I'm going at them from a company level, I get some baseline understanding of their values, their interests, and then they connect me with other friends. And then it just escalates.
Yeah. So you build a network.
LinkedIn stalk people. That's my tip for you.
People.
LinkedIn stalk. Even if you get rejected, it doesn't matter. Friend someone on LinkedIn, ask them for a coffee.
I love that. That's a great strategy. And well, so yeah, sorry to everyone whose LinkedIn DMs are going to now increase exponentially. But
probably
hey,
probably mine. I also take coffees. Most of the time when someone asks me out for a coffee, if I believe it's with an intention of wanting to learn about the city or grow it their own way or pick my brain, then I do it. If it's for creepy dating intentions, I say
no. Well, that's a good what would you call it? A good rule of thumb for people. So you do this. You go meet with what, like a dozen? How many people did you sit down with after LinkedIn stalking them before feeling like you got a network?
Yeah, I'd say probably, well, first the dozen, but then the dozen introduces you to, let's just say, like 2 or 3 more people each. And then, it just becomes exponential.
Yeah. And how did you find a place to live? Like, assuming you didn't know too much about the city before you landed, right?
The first time I visited, I was staying at that friend's house that wasn't in town. So they let me
Mm.
he let me his apartment for 2 weeks. And then when I came back, I did an Airbnb. And the tip or trick for people moving to Mexico City is to bike down the streets that you would love to live in and just note the numbers on the houses and call. Fun fact is I did not speak any Spanish before I moved to Mexico. Why I thought that I could open up an incubator in a country that I didn't know anyone nor spoke the language of, and why that would work. I'm not the most practical thinker, but sometimes it works in my advantage, and it all worked. And at the time I did have a Spanish speaking friend, so he was nice enough to call the apartments for me and ask the basic questions like, is it still available? How many rooms was it? And eventually I found the place that I'm in now.
Wow. Okay. Well, props to you for making that work. I feel like that's so resourceful of you to figure all that out. And then to speak more to how resourceful you are, you have started a startup incubator. Now, before we get into like what it is, I want to know the Chispa, the spark that sparked that idea in you.
The spark of La Chispa was meeting that incubator in Somo, Africa, because it's the same. It was the same model. I really love that model. I found like that was my intersection of what I should be doing, but I wanted to do it in a different city. So I spoke with their founder and their board, and I said I'd love to take your best practices and do my own version in Mexico City. And they were 100% in. They said yes, like where everything's open source. So, and we now are still very collaborative between the two incubators. So yeah, that was she and Somo and the entrepreneurs there were my spark for La Chispa in Mexico.
Yeah. And then once you got something lit up a little bit, how did it expand? What was your journey like?
So the way I developed on the ground, especially not knowing anybody, and this tip I'm about to share applies for really anybody doing a business anywhere. It's a lot easier to at first hook into channels that already exist versus start your own channels from the beginning. And how I applied that to me was that I hooked into an NGO that was already working with a group of youth that were interested in creating becoming entrepreneurs, because they already had a work development program. So then I was able to connect in with them, and then after connecting them with them, doing it a few more times, and then eventually you build your own channels. But there's nothing wrong with leveraging what already exists. That's my tip for the audience.
I like that. I like that. And so you start leveraging these channels, and then you've now begun to develop your own. What do those channels look like? Can you give me an example of one?
So we have three main ways that we attract aspiring entrepreneurs. The first way is still through NGOs. Our latest alliance comes from this group called Sin Fronteras. I'm Without Borders. I'm really passionate about helping migrants. One, because I'm also a foreigner, and two, they stereotypically fit that entrepreneurial profile, where we're risk-taking enough to leave, which is, even if you're in the worst conditions, is a really hard experience to do, because you are trying to fight for your better future. And they also are subject to a whole bunch of different bureaucracy, systematic barriers that put them in their way. So I got a lot off tangent there, but I'm really passionate about helping migrants, and I'm excited to help them develop their own businesses. Okay, but back to your question. So that's one, NGOs. The second way is through social media.
Can I pause you before? I had one thing I want to ask. You mentioned like the entrepreneurial profile. And so for anyone who's in the audience who might be wondering if they fit the profile, what do you think that profile is?
This is a good question. If you are in the audience and you are wondering if you fit the entrepreneurial profile, I would ask yourself, one, do you have something that you really want to create or change or shape in the world? Like, because that's ultimately the fire that is going to fuel you. And then the second one is, are you willing to go on this journey of constant reflection, failure and learning, and growth cycle? I would say those are the two things. If you don't yet know what you're passionate about, but you want to find out, there's a whole bunch of tools that can help you do that. And then the second category, just no matter what obstacle then you face, you have the inner tools to go through it and break through it.
I love that. Those are fantastic. I think something you mentioned before too was like the ability to take on risk. What do you think, what type of risks should people be cognizant of as they're doing this?
It's also a really good question. The biggest risk that people face and why I got into hypnotherapy is the risk of your own ego getting hurt. That is the biggest, I would say, the biggest set of risks. And it's your ego getting hurt, and you're scared of failure, you don't believe in yourself, you think you can't do it, you have this emotional block. And it's those ego hits that you gotta be willing just to love it, face it, and move through it. There's also a lot of risks when you are living in a certain situation where if you are making a trade-off between, do I risk money in doing this prototype, or do I risk feeding not feeding my family? Those are a different set of risks. So it is good to have either a good financial base or finding organizations like Chispa, Somo. I'm not sure which ones exist in the US that can give you that cushion to be able to breathe, eat, put a roof over your head.
And do these institutions such as Chispa also provide like frameworks for assessing risk and identifying them, or how can people learn what they should watch out for with regards to like the financial ones you were speaking about?
So with Chispa, our frameworks are all around one minimal viable product after another. That my advice might be different for if you are in a more cushioned financial position, but for the Chispa, we just do one little step and one little step and one little step, so that way you're not taking on you're not over risking yourself and your livelihood. And if you do have a cushion, then I'd ask yourself, how long is your runway? What percentage do you have teed up for your retirement savings? Do you have health insurance? Is there a place that you can go and put a roof over your head if everything fails?
I like it. And then back to the first category, the kind of personal egoic risk. You mentioned something that I think is super intriguing, and we chatted about it a bit before, but I think the audience would love to hear what's up with this hypnotherapy.
Yeah. So I truly believe that our brains are similar to computers in a lot of ways. And we have these programs, these patterns that are ingrained into us. But just like a computer, sometimes that code needs to be deleted or changed because it's no longer serving us, and we need to reinstall new code. And hypnosis is our way to communicate with our subconscious to rewrite that code in a faster way. For example, let's go, I'll give you that, connecting back to something that we had already talked about. My English class in school, I then developed this state of being that I was not going to ever be good in a creative field, not understanding words well, and I should do numbers, and that the fact that I thought a little bit differently than other people was a bad thing. So that program gets installed when you're young, and at the time it's trying to protect you, right? It's trying to help guide me in a way that will enable me to be successful in life. But then as an adult, you then realize, okay, well, that wasn't that helpful, like that was out of place. I understand why the 10-year-old may thought that, but let's change it. So there's a lot of more traditional approaches where you can just keep repeating exposure, repeating the patterns, or telling yourself to get over it. But hypnosis just surcharges a lot of it.
Very interesting. And if people want to learn more about that hypnosis, where can they go?
So I have a course called Leave a Spark. It teaches you how to hypnotize yourself to be the spark that ignites change. And there's a free tool section, so people can go just start diving into how to use guided hypnosis to overcome specific things that they may be facing in a work context. One of the examples is if you feel like you have imposter syndrome. Another one is if you feel nervous before presenting in meetings. So you can start there. And then also I have a bunch of tips and tricks on TikTok, my Lead with Spark TikTok. And if you really want to dive in, go super in. My hypnosis teacher, she does 6-month deep programs, and I can send her name Shauna, and it's called the Divine Feminine School of Hypnosis. And dive in.
Beautiful. And at the end, I'll be taking all these resources and links, and they'll be on the video and all the other avenues with which people will view this. So people can look there as well. What I also want to ask is, if someone was skeptical about hypnosis, what would you tell them?
Well, I would first ask more questions. So what part of it are you skeptical about?
Oh, well, so I'll hypothetically play the skeptic here.
Great.
I just think hypnosis is bullshit, and that it is a trick of the mind. And anytime I've seen someone go up and get hypnotized, I think they're a paid actor.
I would comment on two pieces there. One, there's the trick of the mind, and then two, there's the paid actor one. I would put aside stage hypnosis, magicianal hypnosis, in a slightly different category. I know that they're very related, but when it comes to using hypnosis to rewire programs in your mind and get over disempowering beliefs, let's separate them. For the trick of your mind, it is a trick of your mind, 100%. You are using your own brain to trick yourself. So the best way I would suggest to skeptics is try it. It's free to try. It doesn't hurt. You can do it yourself and see if it works for you. And if it does, great. There's a book by Joe Dispenza called "You Are the Placebo." And you are the placebo in hypnosis too. And in hypnosis, I think it was Benjamin Franklin, also fact check that, but he read off hypnosis as saying, oh, it's just medicine of the imagination. That's a whole, like, it's a trick of your mind. But that's actually exactly right. It is medicine of your imagination. And that's how it works. It works through your imagination.
I love that. And hearing that reminded me of one other story about placebo, which I think should reinforce your point, and also maybe even get through to the toughest skeptics. And I would also recommend the audience does fact check this too, because I did hear it through word of mouth. But the story goes, some guy wanted to end his life, and he took a bunch of pills that should have given him a heart attack, right? He then, after the fact, decided he didn't want to die and went to the hospital. Everybody in the hospital noticed that he had taken, some pills, and they told him he was actually beginning to enter cardiac arrest in the hospital. They have him on the stretcher. They're wheeling him in the room. He tells them what they took. The doctor says, no, you actually took placebo pills. And his heart attack stopped right there. In reality, though, he had taken the pills that would give him a heart attack. And twist. Yeah. That is the power of the mind right there. It's humongous. Wow,
twist. I think that one was maybe in the Joe Dispenza book, but I'm also not totally sure. Can I do a small exercise for the audience, for the skeptics out there?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to show you the power of the imagination. So what I want to do is I want everybody who's listening, if you're driving, don't do this, but if you're just listening, do it. Just take a moment, close your eyes, take a deep breath. And now, using the power of your imagination, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine yourself in your kitchen. Now imagine yourself seeing a bright yellow lemon on your countertop. Pick up that lemon, feel the texture. And now I want you to take a knife, feel the temperature of that knife in your hand. Now I want you to, using your power of your imagination, imagine yourself taking that knife and splitting that lemon into two, like hearing that sound of that lemon break apart. Now take that lemon and smell it. Now bite it and taste. Yeah, Derek's face is perfect. Bite it. So you're great. Now you can come out. You can throw that lemon out in the garbage or put it in compost. Right, like you have your imagination doesn't do a great job of understanding what is imagined and what is real when it comes to our body and a lot of our senses. So many, like even my mouth just like is like salivating, and many people have like a ugh, like I tasted that lemon reaction. Your physical body reacted to your imagination. So let's use that power of our imagination to also level up and do helpful things.
You're here. I'm with you. Like that whole, I heard the clunk as my knife hit the board, right? The feeling of the peel, like it was a whole visceral experience in my head that led to a bodily reaction. And you know,
I could see your body. I saw your body go blah.
and yeah, and I, because I have my own always voice of an inner skeptic, and if someone's like, oh well, he was just faking that, like, I mean, just think of any time that you're dreaming and you are trying to run from someone, or you're maybe in a fight in the dream and you punch in real life too, right? Your brain thinks something is actually happening and your body will react to it, even if it's not necessarily happening in that reality. So this is fantastic. I think harnessing imagination is humongous, and the more we can tap into that, the more creative ideas will come to people. And really, it's how we interface with the world is through our minds and our imaginations. So I could not be happier that you're doing this work, and I hope that this is going to help even more people.
And one more thing for the skeptic of that. So let's just say you're so skeptical that you almost are fighting that lemon experience, that lemon test. It happens. So then one other thing that I would love to say to that person is, when next time you are daydreaming or thinking about a future scene or a past memory, just notice how your body feels. And does it feel like you're already starting to experience that future scene or that past? Positive or negative? If you're walking into a meeting and you're nervous in meetings, is your body already clenching up and getting nervous? If it's you're about to do something that you are really excited about, does your body already start getting excited? If that happens for you, then that you're already using self-hypnosis.
There you go. And that happens to me all the time. All the time. Oh man, the butterflies before a big call, I'm just like, but yeah, okay. So I do want to keep it moving, because we've already talked for an hour, and right, flew by, right?
It does. Flies by so fast.
Yeah, it's amazing. So much fun. I'm having so much fun with this. So I want to move on from, what you're doing, what you've done now, to reflecting a bit on it. And I first want to ask, if you had to do it all over again, what would you change, if anything?
I'm gonna answer that two ways. One, I don't have any regrets, just because from a self-compassion lens, it is what was, and I'm thankful for where I am today, who I am, all the lessons, both good and bad. If I were to then say, okay, but what am I really curious about? What would have happened if, like, how could my life have turned out if? I'd be really curious of, if I knew what I knew today about disempowering beliefs, and having those tools like meditation, self-hypnosis, plant medicine, if I had that when I was 20, 16, where would I be today? I have no idea, but it feels like the more I get practice with these tools, the more I'm feeling like I'm at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing for me, and the bigger that is. So I'd be really curious I wish I had known these things 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Well, I hope this is reaching some people in that age group, and I imagine it will be.
And even if you're already 50, you still have 50 years of your life left. So why not start now?
That's right.
Yeah, so that would be my biggest thing.
Awesome. And so I know you said it's hard for you to imagine where you might be had you had these tools. Why do you think these tools would have been so beneficial for you?
They would have been beneficial for me because they unblock, so one, they really helped me connect with what does it mean to have unconditional self-love and compassion. Of course, it's always a journey, but that at the core has enabled me to enjoy every moment more. Take more risks because of that ego is a little bit quieter, or I have a better relationship with that ego. And when you take more risks, then you get to explore more, you get to create more, you get to connect more with other humans. So I would imagine that my life would have been more colorful.
Well, more color is always better for me. And so that's the past. Now, about the current day, if I were to give you a magic wand, what, if anything, would you change about how things are now?
This is a really good question. Okay, if I had a magic wand, what would I change about now? Okay, so this goes back to the understanding that I learned a few days ago about my avoidant attachment style. So I really believe that love is the fabric of the world, of the universe, and there's very different types of love. So there's unconditional love, but then there's also all these other different types of love. And I have a hypothesis that if I can truly open up to deep committal love, I'm going to be able to almost like channel that all the other types of love that I am very comfortable with in a stronger way. And if I can channel that all those other types of love in a stronger way, I'm going to be able to spread more love in the world. So if I could have a magic wand, that is what I would love to change. And my magic wand right now is all the hypnosis tools. So check back in 2 weeks to see if I've done it.
We will definitely check back in. And I'm so.
And with the magic wand, I feel like every month or so I find something else that I'm like, okay, this is now my block. This is now my block. Because as I grow, as my context changes, as I need to rebalance, I'm always finding new things. So I'm always using magic wand to change me. Yeah.
You mentioned something in there that I found interesting. So you said committal love. And I know it's personal, but if it's not too personal, I think this is something that is usually on top of most people's minds, right? Types of love, ways to love, types of relationships. And I already have a bit of context, obviously, on your situation, but is there any that you would like to provide to our audience about what you've been exploring and how that's been for you, and why you're now aiming more, even using a magic wand, for committal love?
Yeah, so for majority of my life, I've been very exploratory. I love dating a lot. I never wanted to lock myself down. I would be in relationships here and there, but they'd always be a little bit guarded. I refused against monogamy, like not for me. But then recently I met this wonderful human. He fit any checklist I could ever have imagined, but for some reason I wasn't I wasn't falling in love, and I just kept noticing like why this doesn't make any sense. And I realized it was those self-limiting beliefs and those blockages of fear. Like if I really let go, if I really go deep and explore what could deep romantic love with one person look like, I had all this narratives around my independence would be gone. How am I ever going to support myself? And right, things that are irrational and don't make sense. But I really want to open myself up to that deep love, because it is such a source of power and joy and learning and growth. So I'm going for it.
Mm.
Going for it. And this human is so wonderful that we also have incredibly vulnerable, honest conversations, and we've been talking about this throughout. And so
Yeah. If you're comfortable, I'd love to dive a bit more into like those. You found out that this was like rooted in some fears, like losing autonomy, independence, right?
Yeah.
And like resources. Is there are there any others? Because I have a feeling a lot of people are probably dealing with the same things. And if you could expand a bit on those, I think that would be great. You know, how you found them, how you realized that, and when you realized that, how it felt, and how you're trying to move with them.
Yeah, so one tip for everybody is that a lot of times our deep subconscious fears that are connected to our actions are not rational. So I could never explain using logical words why being in a deep committed relationship with this particular person would ever threaten my resourcefulness, my being on my own 2 feet, my financial independence. Like it doesn't even come close. Like I can't make that connection. But welcome to our irrational deep thought patterns. So my first tip for the audience is don't necessarily try to rationalize your way through everything, versus sometimes just accept that it is. Emotions are emotions. They are what they are. So let's deal with them at the emotional level with compassion and love. You wanted me to elaborate more on something, but now I forgot.
Oh, well, yeah. So you just said deal with them with compassion and love. What does that look like for you, like internally, when you know, like, what's going on in your inner landscape when you realize like, oh, I've got these feelings, they seem irrational to me right now. And then what does dealing with them with compassion and love like actually look and feel like for you?
So the first one, once I realized that there's a quick tip of asking the five whys. So ask yourself why, then again why, then again why, then again why, then again why, and then that helps really uncover what is that deep-seated inner child part of you that doesn't make sense and is screaming. And then once I identify that, then it's not saying, ugh, like I'm such a failure because I ever thought this, or this doesn't make sense, I'm stupid. Like don't try not to do that negative self-talk. It came from the past. It is what it is. Just like it's a child or puppy, don't call it stupid. Don't say mean things to it. Just say, okay, like that is there. And then what I do is a series of self-hypnosis techniques. One of them that the audience can use at any time is, once you've uncovered what that feeling is, feel it. The first step is always feeling. So feel it for a moment. Feel your deepest fear, that uncomfortableness, the vulnerability. I know it's uncomfortable, but you gotta start there. Then once you feel it, then just switch your attention and picture something, a memory, an emotion of what you really would love to feel like. So instead of feeling like that scared inner child that needs to support myself, and if anybody gets too close, I'm going to die without a roof over my head and no food. Like, it doesn't make sense. So instead, like daydreaming and imagining that future sense of being an even stronger team, because I have a partner that I love deeply. And when that love is radiating through every cell in my body, I glow more. And then the people around me smile more, and then they feel more love. And then that just then spirals. imagining that moment and then bringing that back into that first feeling, replacing it, and then integrating it, and then just practicing.
That is powerful.
Those are the 4 basic steps of any hypnosis.
Okay, I love that. And you have already gone ahead and answered some questions that I was going to ask, which was talking about fear and how you deal with that. I also want to hit the other side of the coin. So tell me about inspiration. How does inspiration show up in your life? And is there a way to just grab it?
Inspiration shows up in my life every single day. I feel so lucky because when I get to work with entrepreneurs that are so passionate about making a difference in the lives of others and co-creating together. So every day I have messages from right now we have 50 active entrepreneurs in our portfolio. So I get messages from them all day long. And I love it. They inspire me, just getting to see the stories of them. Plus, one of the strengths of not loving to get rid of my independence is that I've noticed that I've counterbalanced it with having a large, deep network of friendships that I love and that are my family. Like, I have so many wonderful humans in my life like you that inspire me all the time. So I just get to be surrounded all day by incredible humans. I just be like, yeah. And I love being a cheerleader.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
So that's what I'm inspired all day long.
Yeah, I love that. And I hope this also inspires other people. That is the goal. And so moving into that, as we talk about helping other people more, I also want to know how well you know yourself. And it sounds like we already touched on a lot of these things. But if we could maybe make, I want to make some targeted questions into, like, what key character traits do you attribute to your success, and which came naturally and which you had to develop?
Key characteristic traits about my success is there's this thing around, okay, I'm gonna where do I start? Okay, I'm gonna start from the core. I'm grateful because I have this understanding that everybody has this beautiful light inside of us all. This beautiful light. Everybody has it, and I know I have it too, and I can feel it, even if the external is going to shit or I'm doing things wrong or whatever. Like, I can just feel it. Hence, this is also why it's called La Chispa, because it's being the spark of other people's lights. But yeah, so I think that is my strength and my superpower, and it's everyone's strength and it's everyone's superpower. So that's one. And then 2, because of that, it's my other superpower is, I think, the way I deal with fear. I get called fearless a lot. Sometimes people call me naive, but but the way I deal with fear is, it's not that I don't experience it, but that every time I do something that is scary, which is every day, I just take a deep breath. I send myself love and compassion, and I say, why not? What could go wrong?
I love that. And
I think those are my two strengths.
Awesome. And so the first one you said, all natural. Everyone's got it. We all have this
Everyone's
part.
got it.
I am fully with you on this one.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes it can be hidden or buried under traumas or just lack of awareness. And I'm curious as to how you uncovered yours.
I first noticed this light inside of me in a yoga class while I was still in the finance firm. I thought it was the weirdest sensation ever. I just first noticed this light in my stomach, and I could see it, and I was super confused. I was like, what is happening? Yeah, what in the world is happening? That was my first moment of of experience.
Mm.
And then that just grew. It grew thanks to plant medicine. It grew thanks to transcendental meditation, which Bridgewater was a big component of. It grew from years of meditation and awareness and plants and hypnosis. And being around other people who are also connected to the fact that they are light at the core is also a spark of myself.
I love that. I think that's a great toolkit for any of the audience, you know, and it can't overstate enough the importance of getting into your body. Yoga is a great tool for that, for exploring your mind and your spirit, and that's meditation, you know, in and out. So
and skeptics listening I totally understand that there's a large portion of the population that would listen to me and say, she needs to stop doing so many drugs. This girl is crazy. Like what the fuck is she talking about? The light inside of her, like she sounds like she's on another planet. I get it. If before I experienced this, I was in your exact same shoes and I looked at people who said things like that and I'd be like, they are out of their mind. So all I would ask, if that's you right now, all I would ask for you to do, if you're curious, is set the intention of answering the question for yourself of how would I connect with my inner light? Just how, and see what happens. Just see what happens, and then message me and after you found it.
I love that. So for all the skeptics out there, here's a challenge.
Just ask yourself, how if I had a light, how would I find it? If you're a skeptic, then do some scientific evidence on yourself. Go and explore, see if you can find it.
That's right. I love that. And I also now want to flip to the other side of the coin again. So those are strengths. I want to know how you learn about any shortcomings or flaws, and then also how you address them. How do you learn from them?
Yeah. So finding shortcomings and flaws comes from the mirrors around me in life. So whether it is super tangible things like I didn't meet a goal, and then diving into one of Bridgewater's frameworks around self-diagnosis to figuring out what about me resulted in me not achieving that goal. It's a very, tangible standard business thing. But then there's also a bunch of other more intangible mirrors. So one of the things that is constantly a practice for me is genuinely listening. So I can see how my actions are affecting others, and seeing where I might be falling short or causing harm or not communicating clearly. And then also just seeing the situations that I'm in. Am I using my own emotions as an indicator of, am I showing up as me? And when I'm not showing up as me, why? Right? Like what belief, what weakness, what something is standing in the way of that.
Could you explain what you might be coming off as if you're not showing up as you? How do you know you're not coming off as you, and what does that look like?
Yeah, it happens all the time. I'm always in this constant exploration of how do I just keep being more and more unapologetically myself and knowing me. So, okay. So the two weekends ago, I was at this music festival in Acapulco, and music festivals, especially when it's on a beach, usually is my happy spot. Like I'm glowing. I feel like a fairy that is just, just like connected with everyone and everything. But instead there, I was not that happy. Like I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't glowing. Like I felt blocked. I felt denser. I didn't feel like I had the energy to connect with the people around me with as much love and energy. And then that was actually the trigger to then made me realize, wait, why am I not being myself? Oh, I'm not being myself because I blocked myself off because I have this fear of being overly attached. to this person who happened to be there. So yeah, just this, like, I didn't feel my glowing radiant self inside. And yeah, I was blocking. So then that was just an example of yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So and how did you figure out that was going on? Did you like pause, take a breath, think, or did it just come to you in the middle of the festival? Like,
That one came little by little. Like, I had noticed I noticed I wasn't feeling my best self, but I still was happy and enjoying the time, even if I wasn't like super happy. And I was explaining in a way using my prefrontal cortex for the first day or so. Like, oh, maybe I'm just tired. Oh, maybe I'm just stressed out about this thing. Maybe, just like trying to, yeah. So it does take me sometimes a while to break down what's really going on. And this human is incredible. He's a coach, so he also perceived the difference, and so he was the one that actually helped coach me through what was going on with my own. He helped be the mirror of, like, do you see what's happening? And in a work context, again, the mirrors around you. I constantly surround myself with people who are brilliant and brighter and care, and they'll show that mirror and say, hey, do you see this going on?
And what were some of those like coaching techniques that were used, and can you share them with the audience?
Yes. Maybe pulling back my memory. Those coaching techniques were, it's hard to extract principles for them right now. But the underlying thing is, how do you just have honest, vulnerable conversations with others, even if you're saying tough truths? Like, how do you, to the best of your ability, communicate with how you're feeling in this moment, even if it's not the truth that you want?
Interesting.
That's actually another block that we talk a lot about in Lead with Spark, is that what people want some version of the truth so badly that they cherry pick evidence to find that truth, or they'll block emotions, or they won't listen to their self, or they won't listen to their intuition. And yeah, no, you gotta as best as you can just try to check in with your body and say, no, how is it that I really feel?
Right. How do you honor all of your emotions? Right?
How do you honor all of your emotions?
That's a tricky one. A tricky one. Well, thank you for sharing that. And just to continue on the challenging stuff, because that's part of this too. Can you tell me something that you're struggling with? Is there anything keeping you up at night right now? And how are you grappling with it?
Yeah. The thing I'm struggling with right now is, I know in my core that I need to, and I want to take a huge leap in La Chispa. We've been prototyping and working on building a base for 4 years, finding that value, our niche, and we're ready. And now for 2022, I know I need to step up, take up space, ask for the money and the financing and the resources that I need to do this. And there is that fear, right? That, like, oh, what if I fail? So that's my biggest challenge right now, is constantly coaching myself and saying, like, no, I got this, I can do this. Let's acknowledge that fear, because taking big jumps is scary into the unknown, but take a deep breath and just keep moving.
Okay.
So that's my thing. I would love to raise $10 million over the next 10 years, because the highlight goal is, I believe that I can help create 1 million social impact jobs with $10 million. And now I gotta put my actions to where my verbal dreams are. And yeah, I'm gonna go for it. But this is the challenge of the day.
Yeah, okay. Something that may help with that. I work somewhat closely with a social impact partnerships team at Meta, and I think they're always looking for new partners. And I think we do some funding of these types of things. So we could probably
Great.
connect after that to see if that could be one of the avenues.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And this is a really good example of how when people have fears are inevitable, right? But if you don't communicate them, if you don't grapple with them, if you don't externalize them, then they just become dead ideas that get spider webs and crumble. Versus if you share them, you get to collaborate with wonderful humans.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's better together. Everything's better together.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so something else that I think people may be grappling with, and I think maybe societally at large right now, is kind of feeling very down about what's going on around them and struggling to find motivation, or making excuses for not doing what they probably know on a deeper level needs to be done. And so I want to know if you have any tools for dealing with that.
Sorry. COVID. No, just kidding. Many tools, many tools. And the tools, so there, of course, there are many tools out there, and everybody should go through what tool makes sense for them. My own personal tools start off with one, even though it's scary and hard, trying to break the habit of your own mind wherever you are today, and just know that you can do it. And how you do it is committing to yourself that you can find over time your own self-belief, and that you can do it. And I think that opens up then your mind to unlocking a bunch of other access to tools, because at the core, if you don't believe that you can get better, if you don't believe that you can get yourself out of that situation, you're not going to go after any of the tools available. And one, even if you're really skeptical, and even if you don't believe right now, one thing that you can do, both using your imagination and then not using your imagination. So if you're using your imagination, daydream. That's my big thing right now. Just daydream about a future that you would love, and just see what comes out. See how you feel. Just daydream more, and allow yourself to be inspired by your day-to-day things that then highlight how you can make that daydream real.
I love it.
So there is action involved, but first start with the daydreaming. Then the second one, not imagination, daydreaming focus, is just start paying attention to what are the little moments of enjoyment in your life today. What are the little things that bring you joy? It can be so small, like, oh, I really like it when there's ice in my coffee. Doesn't matter. Just start noticing the things that bring you joy, and then you'll notice more and more what pulls you to doing more things that bring you joy, that bring you out of the lull. Can I actually give one more other tip, especially because people are probably listening to this because this is a podcast. What you choose to pay attention to reinforces how you feel, and you'll just keep reinforcing those beliefs. So if you're constantly listening to doomsday podcasts, that's what your emotional body and your brain is going to pay more attention, like it's going to be. If your Instagram is hypnosis, and they can go into the why, but as you're scrolling, you're being hypnotized, because your prefrontal cortex quiets a bit and you're absorbing a lot in your subconscious. So choose what you are. You have the power to choose what data you absorb, and it's different than ignoring reality. Like, you can still do it in a way where you're not ignoring reality, but you're doing it in a way that's helpful for you.
It's like choosing what to eat.
You choose what to eat. with
Brain
information.
food. I
Yeah,
love that.
brain food. And I know there's a lot of critics out there would say, yeah, but then you're just going to end up in your own thought bubbles, right? You're just validating data, and that can totally happen. But my response to that is, but can you do it in a way where you get out of your thought bubble, so you're still seeing many different perspectives, but with underlying values or tone or something that makes you still feel good. Like,
Yeah, I like that. I like having a value structure that empowers you to deal with the world, especially one that enables you to understand what may be contradicting thoughts or opinions and absorb those and take what value there is there, abstract that, and then also ignore the things that are detrimental to you, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's well, I can't remember, it was some famous intellectual who said something along the lines of like, the sign of true intelligence is the ability to hold two contradictory thoughts in their mind at the same time, right? And so what would a unifying way of viewing the world, what would a way of viewing the world that unifies those two things look like, right? And that, I think, may be a little different for every person, but extremely powerful to get. And then that can allow you to have, you do now have your own framework for interpreting things that allows you to also go beyond your bubble, right? Because it's fit within a larger framework of something like, well, I actually don't know the answer, and so I should really look into it and see where each thing is grounded in truth, and like that's where I want to ground in, right? So there are ways to get around it, but yeah, the echo chamber thing is very challenging to deal with, and that's part of what I hear about a lot working where I do. But
I wonder though if the more that we all train the algorithm of the fact that we care about seeing many perspectives, but in a way where it doesn't drain our energy, if that will just feed us more of that. And I think on my own social feed, I get it. So I'll take an example for anybody listening. Let's talk about climate change. You could train these algorithms to give you doomsday articles around climate is going to hell and all these infrastructure problems and pollution and we're all dying and all this horribleness. Or you can train the algorithm to show you, here are the companies that are trying to fight these climate people. Here are their critics and the problems that they perceive in them doing that. And then you can look at that and say, okay, here's how, it's not the fact that the problem doesn't exist, like it exists, but here's how we can solve this problem, and here are some thoughtful counterpoints of problems that they see on those solutions. And then you get to jump in the field and you say, okay, what do I think? Like, okay, where am I going to vote with my dollar? What company may I want to work for? How am I going to contribute to this? So you're not ignoring the problem, but you're choosing to engage with it in a way that's a little bit more positive, action focused.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're actually engaging with it. You're not just being crushed by it.
Yeah.
Right. That is a big difference. And I think curating your feed is something extremely important. I don't think it's talked about nearly enough. And it's something that I did recently. As a few years ago, I just like stopped following a bunch of shit that I was like, wait, this is not serving me. It's not putting me in a good mindset. Like, it's a lot of this doom and gloom type stuff. And I want to find more things that feel like are empowering me to grow and evolve perspective wise and take action where I want to. And it is night and day. Like, I love scrolling, and Kayla often, because she's new to the social media, she will kind of be like, oh, I don't like it. I'm like, but everything I send you makes you laugh really hard. And she's like, okay, I do like it. And so it's all about how you curate who you follow. And there's a lot of wisdom to be had out there, as well as
so much wisdom.
Yeah, actionable steps to take against
huge and collaboration of ideas and getting to see other people's perspective. And again, to anybody listening, I'm going to reinforce this. I am not saying don't see the problem. I'm not saying that. I'm saying see the problem from different angles and from sources that are communicating it in a way that leads one step further to making the problem go away.
Exactly. In order to address a problem, you need to see it, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to miss something and you're probably going to make it worse.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to meaning and fulfillment. So this is a big thing that I think undergirds everybody's lives. I think we're all searching for fulfillment, right? And people talk a lot about, you know, drinking to fill the void or eating to fill the void or whatever, like this void. What? Okay. How do you actually fill the void? And that's going to be the topic for this section, the theme. And so at first I want to start with, you know, where are you on your journey? Are we there yet? And do you have a destination in mind?
I like the quote that enlightenment is a state that you float in and out of, not a destination. So with that quote in mind, today I feel amazing. I feel extremely fulfilled, and but you know, who knows what 10 minutes will bring. That'll be another thing, because I do flow in and out of it. Filling the void, my biggest tip and the thing that has helped me so much is realizing that there's no void. This goes back to, you are light. Like that is your core. That is what travels through every cell of your body. That is the thing that connects you to the universe, to unconditional love, to everything. So at the very core, there's no void. And the tip that I do for myself is, when I am feeling caught up in this world or things that stress me out, I go and I sit and I close my eyes and I just feel and reconnect with that inner light. Some days it's easier than others, but we have to shift people's mind that there is no void. There's just a perception of it.
I love that. Powerful, maybe controversial, but powerful.
Definitely controversial.
That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. And I do understand that there's also people that are gonna be listening to it, and they're gonna say, yeah, but it's so easy for you because because of my race, my gender, how I look, my socioeconomic status, my job, and all of that is totally true. I totally understand that. Everybody gets dealt a different set of cards, harder and easier for many other people, but wherever you are today, I would love to just help be the spark of helping others realize that there is that light inside of them, and there's no void.
I love that. Well, in the vein of guiding people, we are here to try to guide lost souls a bit. And so first I want to feel, when do you feel lost?
When do I feel lost? When do I feel lost? Like, do you always feel like you're on the right path? For the past few years, I've always felt like I was on the right path, and at a substantial level. I'm always questioning day to day, like, is that project right? Is, you know, should this business go left or right? But that doesn't shake the core. I felt really lost growing up. I felt really lost in my college years. I felt less and less lost at Bridgewater. But when you said, when am I lost, it felt like before. I felt like more back in the day. And where do you feel most found? Inside myself. I feel like I don't mean to be a broken record, but I feel most found. Yeah, when I feel the light inside. Like, I feel my connection to the universe. Yeah, and then at a more tangible way, because I've been working on this mission for a while, and it still feels super right. Being here in Mexico City, surrounded by this beautiful friend group that I have, international friends like you, it just feels like I'm just interconnected with, just these like beautiful humans that just bring me so much joy every day.
Mm. Well, I love that, and I can see it. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's when you feel most found.
Yeah.
What makes you feel most fulfilled?
Most fulfilled. I feel most fulfilled now when I am laughing with friends.
Hmm.
Those are my moments where I feel most fulfilled. Those micro moments where it's just like pure laughter
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and sharing that laughter with people I care about.
Mm-hmm. I love that. You're hearing that is making me reflect on the last few times I've had that, and I love it to death. And it's free.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. That's so interesting. Yeah. Notes for the audience: not a car, not a house, not a yacht.
Yeah.
It is laughter with friends.
I think my annoying friendship quality is that I'm always asking friends to tell me a joke. Like I'm like, tell me a joke, and they like,
Be funny.
I have a be funny. I have that's probably most. I think that we should ask that what my most annoying friendship quality is, but I would say that's definitely top 5. Because they'll just be like, "Can you tell me a joke?" And they look at me like, I don't joke off the top of my head. I have one friend who we still communicate with on Instagram, and he just keeps sending me dad jokes. I love it so much. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody listening, please just send me jokes so we can laugh together.
I have a feeling your inbox will be even more inundated after that happens.
Yeah. I love really bad puns and dad jokes. Those are my favorite.
You got it. You got it. Will do.
I laugh at your post a lot too. I think that's probably my most common reaction to your feed.
Yeah, thank you. I work out curation. It's all about curation.
It's all about curation.
Okay, so that's fulfillment. I want to talk a bit about meaning and where you find it.
Meaning. How would you define the difference between fulfilling and meaning?
Well, that's a good question. So for me, fulfillment is when I am perfectly happy with what's at hand. I don't have a desire for anything else. I am full. I am me. I am done. Like, not necessarily just after a good meal, but for me, it's like on the dance floor, for example, listening to a really good song, right? And I'm just letting it go. Like there's nothing else on my mind. It's one track, one thing is happening, and it's me dancing.
Yeah.
For me, meaning is, something like that feeling that you're like, oh, this is significant, right? Or like, this is why I'm doing this thing. Like there's a feeling of like, oh, yeah, tapped in, right? This is it. And there's meaning to be found in feeling fulfilled as well, but also in other areas too. And so I'm wondering, how does that feel for you? Does that resonate?
Yeah, that was a really helpful definition. Thank you. Okay, so my meaning, I'm going to connect that with like my life's purpose. And I believe that my meaning, my purpose comes from your audience is going to think I'm the most like hippie chick ever. I promise I'm also grounded with my 2 feet on the ground, and I'm successful in tangible ways too. And also
you are. Just a reminder, she worked at Bridgewater for 6-ish whatever years. That's an insane company to get a job at. That like if you're not familiar with Bridgewater, look it up. It's tip of the top. So she is grounded, and
I'm grounded,
she's also a hippie.
And I'm also a hippie. So my purpose in life is, I believe that if I can continuously connect with my own inner strength, my own inner light, and the brighter that I can shine, the more that it's going to enable others' lights to shine brighter as well. That is at my core purpose. I do that right now through business development because we live in 2022, and that's like the best channel. But that is my core meaning and my core purpose. And so I feel like the most meaning when I'm working towards that goal, both in terms of when I'm doing things that help me shed those layers, shed those disempowering beliefs, shed those fears, find more self-compassion. And then when I'm then interacting with other people, specifically, I love entrepreneurs, I love leaders. So connecting with those people who want to be leaders, who want to be entrepreneurs, to then, help them just feel better, be brighter, see their own light. That's where I
Yeah.
find meaning.
Yeah. Sounds like in serving others.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, I really feel like I'm in this world to serve others through first changing yourself. Yeah, I'm not trying to change anyone else. I'm just trying to shape the world by first shaping myself.
Yeah, exactly. I think what was the quote? Is like something like, all change first comes from within.
Yeah.
And I'm fully with you. It changes how you show up, how you impact people, and how they end up. It for me, like if I get advice from someone who doesn't seem to be living it, I definitely am like very skeptical of the advice. But if I see someone's living it, and you can feel it when you meet someone who's into it, you're like, that's it.
Yeah, you can feel it. You can totally feel it.
I also want to talk about something I think is on a lot of people's minds and people are probably struggling with, especially given like epidemics of depression across the US and other countries. And that thing is self-worth. And so earlier you mentioned you were deriving your self-worth from like climbing the ladder as fast as possible. Where are you finding it now?
Now I'm defining my self-worth through how I show up in this world. If I can be my KPI is, was I unapologetically myself today? Like if I can be more and more unapologetically myself, whatever that means, that is my own self-worth. And of course it's easier said than done, because we're getting bombarded all around with what does society think your value should be, what does society think what your success should be, what does society think is weird, it's not weird. But yeah, that's my daily KPI of my self-worth.
And how do you harmonize your own desires to be unapologetically yourself with those pressures from society?
I believe that because there are 7 billion people in this earth, I think you only need like 100 people to feel connected to you in order to reach some self-happiness, feeling like you're fulfilled and content. You should also fact check that, but it's a really, really small percentage when you compare it to 7 billion. So I harmonize it by surrounding myself with that network of people who really do love and support and see me as me. And that obviously includes the evolving me, the flawed me, everything. But one of the things that I see that block people from being able to do that is the fear of leaving a job that might not be right for them because they're surrounded by people that may not be right for them, or leaving their town, their country, say putting some distance between old friends and new ones. So that is really scary, and there's a lot of evolutionary reasons why we find it so scary. But the more you are you, the more you'll find your tribe in the 7 billion people, and it doesn't have to be geographically based. And you can do it over time too. So if you really love, I don't know, some really out there niche thing, I can't, my brain's not pulling up an example right now. Just Google it, right? Find the same people that like it too.
Yeah, your vibe attracts your tribe.
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
All right.
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
From one deep question to another, what are you going to care most about on your deathbed?
Ooh, you know what's really weird when you ask that question? I'm really surprised by my intuitive answer that popped up in my head, but I'm going to share it. This was interesting. So the thing that popped up in my head was a picture of like me holding a child. I'm this was a surprise. But my first reaction was I guess I'm gonna really care about maybe like a future child, and the love and support I could give to that child.
Little baby Ryden.
A little baby something. but stepping back, the thing I think I'd care most about is well, the thing I would hope at the very end of my life is, do I still have that same level of self-compassion? So no matter what choices I made or what I did or how much I messed up or how ignorant I was or naive, do I still just look back at my life at the end and just laugh like, oh, little child? Like, no, follow she unknown. That's what I hope. That's what I hope. I hope I get to laugh at myself when I'm older and just, yeah, like a puppy. Like, oh, she was just a puppy. She didn't know.
I love that. I love that. And hearing that is reminding me of I had a near-death experience, and there was a moment where I got in a snowboarding accident back in 2017 or like December 2016, and I hit my head really hard in the snow, and I ended up with like some brain hemorrhaging in 2 different spots. And I had no idea this was happening like throughout the day, so I kept snowboarding actually after that. And back in the cabin, as I was getting out of the shower, I started feeling really off, and like I was like, what the fuck? And I started falling to the ground, and I was like, something's really wrong. And you know, I thought my left side was going numb, and so I thought I was having a stroke. And all I can hear in the background is like my best friend like bumping house music. I'm just like, fuck, like this can't be how I die. And so I've noticed the bathroom door is locked. It's like bang on the bathroom door, so he hears me. And I begin to black out. And as I'm blacking out, I'm like, shit, this really is going to be how I die.
Oh, it's so terrible.
And then it was like, I had a pretty good life. I think I did pretty well. Okay, all right. And then boop, blacked out.
Wow.
But, you know, yeah, there was a bit of that, like, yeah, you did pretty well. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. All right.
You gave it a shot. Wait, I have so many questions. So what was that experience after you blacked out like?
Nothing. I have no memory of that. The last thing I remember was like, this would be how you die, you idiot. And then it turned into like, oh well, okay, but you know, you had a good run. You know, this is satisfying.
I love that. I love that self-compassion. That is how beautiful.
Yes, right after my self-tease. That's how I interact with myself. You moron. Okay, well, pretty good. But yeah,
and then, there's nothing between. There's no recollection between when you blacked out, when you woke up.
No, actually, it was really hard to, like, I apparently my friend, he had to pick the lock to the bathroom, and I'm glad he knew how to do that because he found me in there like kind of spazzing and drooling on myself. I had actually had a seizure, not a stroke. And he slapped me awake, and at first I didn't even remember my own name. I don't remember any of that. I came to on the couch in the living room, and then remembering, he's like, hey, do you know where you are? I'm like, I look around, we're in a cabin in Tahoe. I'd never been in before that day. And I was like, I don't know. And then it all started hitting me like, oh, I'm in Tahoe, blah, 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 blah. And then everything came back to me, went to the hospital, and they're like, your brain's bleeding in 2 spots. And if it keeps going too much, we're gonna have to drill a hole in your skull to relieve the pressure. And I was like, cool, great. And sat around there for a few days, and it didn't get to that point. So no holes. My head is whole, no holes in it.
Good.
But yeah, you know, I thought there might have been more to the experience. I was wondering, like, am I going to see like pearly gates or some sort of light? And it was just nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. Although I have had, other experiences that you might categorize as maybe ego death type stuff, but that's for another conversation, I think.
Okay, I'll refrain from my questions, but I'm one that is terrifying. 2, I'm really glad that you are alive because you've been such a joy to meet, and I feel like you're the person that comes in and out of my life, and every time you do, you just leave like these like little gifts of wisdom, but then like and sow seeds that then like come out later. So plus it's a lot of humor throughout, so thank you Thank you for not dying that day, and thank you to your friend for knowing how to pick a lock. Like,
Yeah, well, yeah, he's one of my besties, and I won't explain why we both know how to pick locks, but well, I'm really glad to be here too, and
yeah,
yeah, we can definitely. I mean, if you got more questions about that experience, I'm happy to, but it's the other experiences. We'll have that conversation later.
the ego deaths. Great.
Cool. So I want to talk quickly about motivation, right? So still trying to, I think there's a large motivation issue going on with the general population. There's a sort of miasma that I can sense in social media. If you look at kind of like all of the new TikTok memes and themes that are coming out of the teens, you start to see, you know, depression memes and like all these like kind of like, you know, there's a whole mumble rap, Xanax, celebrity thing going on. And I think a lot of that is a result of not having, you know, areas in which people find meaning that's deeper than using those types of substances. And so what I want to dive into is, you know, how you get out of bed every morning and what motivates you to do what you do.
I have not lived in the US now in 6 years. And so I feel a bit disconnected to that world that you just painted. It's a very different experience in Kenya and Mexico in terms of yeah, just that way of being, of not having motivation. And I'm curious, I would actually love to just talk to more people in the US and understand their feelings, to be able to give more helpful advice, because I don't really know what's going on with you guys. Like, it's hard to get a deep understanding of, yeah, why is the US like that right now? A lot of other countries in the world, we're not like that.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of macro factors and micro ones, and maybe it would just be good to point them again to your tools and your website, which we'll have at the end. So I'll move on then. This is a bit broader question, by the way. We're nearing the end. Are you religious or spiritual? And if either one, could you describe what that's like for you?
Yeah. One other thing about that last question is I'm 100% serious about, like, if anybody listening to this is feeling like they can't find that motivation or feeling that low, like, I would love just to talk to you and understand more, and then be able to point them towards more resources, because I do want to come back into the US, because from afar I see the US going in a really dark, weird direction. And I'd love to jump back into that potentially sinking ship. You guys will be, we will all be fine. We'll all be fine. We're gonna steer this ship. We're gonna steer it back to good. Okay, to answer your question, I would say I'm spiritual. I don't resonate with any specific religious organization. I think I do choose bits and pieces of ones that make sense to me. For example, I have this Aztec goddess on the wall, and I love this because she's the goddess of romance and pleasure and just female empowerment. So, for example, I wouldn't identify as having that as my religion, but I think it's a beautiful symbol to remember that the divine feminine is beautiful and we shouldn't hide from it.
Amen.
So it's spiritual, but not religious.
Are there any bits or nuggets of your spirituality that you think the audience should know or look into?
I am extremely thankful for plant medicine and plant medicine ceremonies. It's been, I would say, the most helpful tool in helping me heal from heal from trauma, connect with that inner light. We were talking about mirrors earlier. Like that is the most real mirror that I've ever experienced time and time again, but a mirror with compassion at the same time, looking into all of your flaws, all the things that you've done wrong, all the ways that you've hurt others, hurt yourself. And so that would be my tip for others, in a respectful way, when everybody is ready. I think entering into the plant medicine world is such a beautiful gift.
And if people wanted to learn more about plant medicine and all the benefits and some of the potential risks, like, do you have any pointers?
I'm not an expert in it. I'm just a participant. However, if anyone does want to come to Mexico, I'm happy to connect them to some of the Mexico shamans. Mexico is known for its mushroom ceremonies, its peyote, and its bufo.
Okay, so there's one in. And then I'll take a moment to plug a guy who I've only heard him speak on another podcast once, but the way he did it and the energy he brought really hit home for me. And his name is Shaman Omar on Instagram. So Shaman spelled SHAMAN, Omar OMAR. That's all one word. You can find him on there and see what's up. Dude, I think he's got it down.
From a more science aspect too, I really like actually Hamilton Morris. He's had a podcast or two on Joe Rogan that I found really helpful, and he does it from a more science-based chemistry approach, which I think is also a helpful angle to combine it with.
Awesome.
Some of the more spiritual lenses.
Well, there's some leads for the audience. Fantastic. And now, in conclusion, I just want to leave the audience with some more actionable advice. And one of the big ones that I think people may be struggling with is developing a routine. And so I'm wondering if you have a routine that the audience might find beneficial, right? And how do you balance work with personal life, making time for people that you care about, that type of stuff?
Two top of mind tips for people who want to build more helpful routines. The first one is try to develop a intention, a state of awareness, to set a micro intention before you switch to any next activity. It can take you literally 5 seconds, and just think, how do I want to feel in this next thing I'm about to do? And maybe like, what is the thing that I would really love to achieve out of it? So then you're not even adding any time, and you're just showing up in the way that you would love to show up in. And then the second tip with the routine is, in a similar way, start paying attention to what brings you joy and what doesn't. What gives you energy, what doesn't give you energy. And I don't mean just only do things that are really easy and high on dopamine hits, but really that meaningful hard work joy is part of it. And do more of those, do less of the other, and eventually your routine will just fall into place.
I love it. I love it. Tying in, noticing the feelings in your body, being really cognizant of those as the baseline for constructing your routine.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And what I find is that people have a hard time jumping from one state to another. This goes something as simple as the belief that I can't to I can, right? You have to almost go through the I can't, well, I can learn, or I'm learning, and then eventually you can. Same thing with the routine. So when I see people say, okay, I'm going to structure this routine, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. and then I'm going to do meditation, and then I'm going to blah, blah, blah. Like, it's a jump. If it works for you, wonderful, go for it. But another alternative for if that's not working for people is pay attention to what brings you joy, do more of it, pay attention to what sucks your energy, do less of it. And over time, you'll just wake up one day and you'll be like, wow, I have the life I wanted.
I love that. I love that.
And then it's always evolving too. So you're always going to want, it's just ever evolving.
Okay, and finally, this is the last one. any causes or projects that you'd like to bring to our audience's attention?
Yeah. So this kind of goes back to the what I'm seeing in the US. I don't know what's going on with you all, but I would love to help, and I would love to enable both leaders or people who want to be leaders to connect with their own passion, their purpose, their meaning, and know these self-hypnosis tools, so that way we can all live from a place of joy and curiosity, inspiration, versus fear and unmotivation and feeling stuck and hopeless. So given that, two things. One, I have a course online to help people connect with those things I just said. And also in January, I'm launching a Connect with Your Inner Spark 21 days, like little 5-minute exercises over WhatsApp or Telegram that they can do every day, just to start reprogramming, learning the tools to reprogram their brain to feel better and better and better.
Okay, I love that. And we will include links to all these things in the descriptions of whatever platform this ends up on, which is a lot. And yeah, any final remarks, thoughts?
I'm constantly learning. I'm sure I said things in this podcast that in a month from now I'm going to be like, well, that was stupid, and and a year from now even more. So I would love to learn with this audience. I would love podcasts to also be collaborative. So if anybody listened to anything I said and just agrees with it, I would love to hear why, and we can learn together. So my inbox is open. You can find me on Instagram. That's probably the best way. And let's chat, let's debate, let's learn, and yeah, let's grow together.
That is a beautiful note to end on. Ryden, thank you so much for doing this. It's been an absolute
Thank you for
pleasure.
having me. I love the personal questions. You're the first person that I've been doing lots of podcasts and nobody has ever asked me those personal questions. And yeah, I think they're really important to understand the picture of people, so that way we can learn from each other.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, all right. I've taken over 2 hours of your time, so I'm gonna let you go. Ryden, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure as always, Derek. Thanks for also spreading your light around the world and making me laugh. And also thank you you've also been a big across the thought barrier lines, and sharing things that maybe my newsfeed wouldn't normally hit mine. So I really appreciate that a lot. And you do it in a way where it's out of curiosity and learning versus everything's going to hell and there's nothing we can do about it. Thank you for being you.
Right, you're gonna make me blush, so thank you. And you're very welcome.
Good.
It's
Good.
a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun.
Good. I'm glad.
All right, I'll see you later.
Bye.